Thank you, guys. It was a little complicated, but we made it happen all together.
It was my first time and Vinny's first time doing a virtual background.
I was like, what?
Yeah, we're good. Up and running.
We got music in the background to get me in the mood for Hispanic Heritage Month.
Right.
The mariachi.
All right.
Michael, you gotta put some cumbia or something as well.
Yeah.
All right. Okay. Well, Jeanette, is it okay if I start?
Yes, we're recording. Go ahead.
Okay, all right. All right. Well, thank you all for joining us today. We're here to celebrate and embrace National Hispanic Heritage Month. I am Michael Verdelis, this year's Greater Downey Association of Realtors president. Today for this, we're gonna go by Miguel. I'm just kidding. But anyways, we have a panel today of Greater Downey Association members who are also leaders in the organization to talk about Hispanic heritage and Hispanics as consumers. We have with us today Vinny Salcido, Julio Medulo, Edwin Acevedo, Elo Villamil, and we're going to talk today about different things. So I think I want to kick it off by just sharing a little bit about you guys and about your family heritage and how you immigrated to this country or your family. So let's start with Julio.
Well, Michael, thank you very much for allowing me to be on this panel, first of all. Well, I was born in Lima, Peru, so I am an immigrant. You know, I came at a very young age. I came at the age of 4. Basically came with my mother, my 2 aunts, and my grandmother. We're a very, very small family. You know, I remember we lived in Los Angeles, it's in between Echo Park and Silver Lake, a little town called Mayberry. And, you know, I remember, you know, I slept in the living room with my mother and my grandma and my 2 aunts slept in the 1 bedroom that we had in the apartment, right? So, you know, the little things that I appreciate, you know, from coming to the US, right? Like my mother sewed belts for 10 cents a belt, right? And somehow we always managed to have food on the table. We always managed to have everything that we possibly needed, right? So I'm very grateful for my family. We're very, very united. You know, we had 1 car. We had a Plymouth Duster. I don't know if you guys know what a Plymouth Duster is, but it's a very, very old car, probably a classic now. You know, lived in Los Angeles to the age of 10. And then I moved to the San Fernando Valley, and which is where I grew up for the rest of my youth and adult life. Now I currently live in Northridge with my family, and you know, that's my background. I love my culture, love my country, love our food, love our people, and I love that I'm here with all of you, and we have such a great melting pot of people in our association that, you know, I find that to be a true blessing. So thank you.
Sure, thank you, Julio. Appreciate you for sharing. Vinny.
And Mike, thanks for having me. It's a pleasure being here. So I'm first generation born here. I was born in Santa Monica. My dad from Durango, my mom from Zacatecas. And my dad came here as a bracero in the 60s. He used to work as a contracted laborer in the fields, picking melon and cotton and different things. And that's how he got his legal status. And he ended up meeting my mom here in Santa Monica, where we lived, and I have 4 siblings. And we lived in Santa Monica until the rent started getting out of control, and then rent control hit after we moved out. So we moved out of there into the South Bay area, into Inglewood and then Hawthorne, and grew up there. And I love the Mexican culture and all the Hispanic cultures, and with great pride. I represent in everything that I do, all of you guys, all the people. And so it's an honor to be here. I appreciate the invitation. Thank you.
Great, thank you. All right. Well, good morning, Edwin. How are you?
Morning. Thank you guys for having me. Yeah. You know, my story, well, you know, my parents immigrated to the United States in the late 70s, right where the brink of the Civil War from El Salvador. That Civil War started in 1979, lasted for almost 15 years. And a lot of trouble, a lot of, you know, change was happening in that country. And so both my parents immigrated. My mom crossed the border in 1975, and my dad a year later. And for those that know, there's Salvadorian corridor. That's what it's known now. I see on the map. It's right there, Pico Union, Rampart. There's a Tommy's Chili Burgers right on Rampart. My dad told me that he took my mom out for a first date right there, and so it was good to know. It's funny to kind of hear the stories, but again, I was my mom, I asked her, a while back, I said, hey, why do you come? He goes, well, for a better opportunity, for myself and what I can do in the country. So she started as a babysitter, house cleaner. She started to she babysat kids in Brentwood, and washing, cleaning the house. Sometimes when I was on vacation or what have you, I would go with her, and I would help her, and you would have the kids from that household be there as well. So it was kind of my first experience to see, other than Hispanics and going to school, you would see different kids, and that was kind of like a shock for me. But they started there, and they moved into a one-bedroom apartment right there, borderline Koreatown, right there on Harbor and 8th Street. And at that point, my brother and I were born, and then my sister was born, and now we have 3 kids in a one-bedroom apartment. And so my dad had to make a choice. He was a hardworking individual, and he worked at a place in Gardena, and he rose up the ranks, supervisor and everything else, and he managed to get his home. We bought a home in Linwood in 1989 in November for $125,000. And so, from there on out, he decided to work hard, and that's the story. I mean, that's the immigration. I was born here, in 1980, and in Los Angeles, and from there on out, just continue on. But I do appreciate the value and the courage that my parents went, that they had to endure of coming over to the country. And obviously, I want to make them proud. I'm sure my siblings want to make them proud as far as why they chose to come over here and continue on the legacy of who we are, and how we can represent the Latino culture, and that we're strong, hardworking individuals, and we're here to make a change in this country. So that's who we want to represent, So that's
very nice. Thank you for sharing, Edwin. And Eloy, how about for you? What is your pathway here for your family?
Hey everyone, Eloy Villamil here. My mom my mom is from Aguascalientes. My dad is from Puebla, and they actually met in Mexico City. That's where I was born, in Mexico City, born and raised. And I was there until the age of 16. And at 16, that's when I decided to come into the U.S. My father left to the U.S. He actually came into the U.S. At the time that I was 4 years old. And so I didn't get to, spend too much time or grow with my dad. And so at the time that I turned 16, it was just kind of like a different, you start going through different, how do you want to say, phases in your life. And, as you're, becoming a teenager, you need more, I believe you need more of a father figure. And I think that was part of my belief. And so that's when I made the decision that I wanted to come and live with my dad and spend time with my father. And so obviously, I wasn't documented at the time. So the only way to make it happen to come to the US was to jump the border, like, many of us have done it. And it actually took me 3 tries to be able to come into the US. And then the funny thing is that, the last time, when I made it happen, the guy that was crossing us over, the Coyote, it was his first time being a Coyote. So he got lost throughout the path and, the way. And so for whatever reason, luckily, I think, God was always, looking over my shoulders, and we were able to find the transportation that was going to bring us over to LA. And so that's how how I made it to LA. I remember we actually got the lever over there in Huntington Park. right around Florence and like Santa Fe. I think that's where my dad went to pick me up. And I remember, getting out of the car, like really scared, and seeing my dad. And it was like, I was finally like seeing the light. So, it's crazy, it's crazy. So coming into a different country, not knowing what to expect, I grew up and when I came here, I was living in Artesia. So for you guys that know, Artesia is a very small town, and there's not a lot of Latinos or Mexicans around the area. So I didn't know what to expect. So went to high school for 2 years until I graduated, and then from there, I didn't really know what I wanted to do. I was one of those kids that really didn't have much goals. I didn't know what to do, what to expect. I didn't really like school neither. So majority of the time, I like to learn things on my own, and I like to learn from other people. So I got into sales later on, and I was able to purchase a house with my dad at 21. And I think that was when everything finally clicked, and I discovered that I wanted to help the Hispanic community understand more about real estate and financial services, and building wealth, because I discovered that there was a huge lack of knowledge when it comes to that. And going through the process of purchasing the house with my father, and not knowing much about credit or financing or documentation or anything like that, I felt that the agent that was helping us really misrepresented us in many forms, because he didn't explain anything. We would go to the office and it was just like, okay, you got to sign here, and you don't get to ask many questions because I don't have a lot of time. So sign the documents, get out of here. And and every time that we needed more documentation, or we needed to go through whatever process, it was like he was demanding everything for us. So the process felt really, really, really bad. And so I think I made it my mission that I wanted to get into the real estate business for that same specific reason. And more than anything, help our community, the Hispanic community, understand what it takes, not just to own a home, but also to understand how finances work, and and what they can do to build wealth through real estate. And plus, we're in a country here in America that you get to have huge opportunities that a lot of times we don't even understand what kind of opportunities we have. And I think now through social media and everything, we get to understand how many of us, how many Latinos are here in California, and and I think it helps a lot more to know that we're not that much of a minority anymore. So that's a little bit about my background.
Well, I really appreciate it, Elo. And actually, that brings me to my next question, which is along the same lines of what Eloy was speaking of, about educating Hispanics on having some financial knowledge. So for example, Hispanics are declined for conventional home loans at a rate that's about 7% higher than the national average. So I'm going to put this out to all of you. What financial behavior traits do you generally see amongst Hispanic Americans that help hinder their access to mortgage loans in the current underwriting environment? So do you see things out there that Hispanics do that hurt their chances to get a loan? So I'll open it for anyone.
I will say something first, Michael. I think for the first thing is, I know that the majority of Hispanics have a hard time learning how to actually put money away, how to plan, how to strategize. And so, my dad growing up, he was a waiter. My mom used to clean houses. They didn't know about 401ks. They didn't know about putting away for a rainy day and stuff. They lived day by day. They used to work hard. My dad used to work 2 jobs. And so I think that what I see now, unfortunately, is I see that a lot of Hispanics, they live beyond their means. They spend more money than they should be spending. They don't plan and strategize. And that's something that we need to learn to teach. And like Eloy said, teach our clients. It's not just about buying a house. It's about learning how to strategize, how to keep the house, how to plan for the next one, you know?
And Benny, it's more about, yeah, I mean, going back on what he's saying, it's all about education and financial literacy, right? And kind of understanding the tools out there and knowing that, you know, your credit scores are very important, because you mentioned conventional loans, right? You didn't mention FHA. If conventional loans, you kind of have to have a better credit score versus FHA to get a better interest rate, right? And not hit and qualify for more. And so with that being said, you know, valuing your credit score is huge, you know, and using credit. A lot of our Hispanic community likes to use the condinas, and that's the way to save money and what have you. And honestly, we got to figure out how to use what's available to us now in the United States. And that's the biggest thing, is the education. And that's why I think all of us here who've been leaders for NAREP, we give back to the real estate professionals, so they in turn can hold these local seminars. Elo is big on that, where he can educate, and we can educate other clients and buyers in regards to what's available out there, because many people do not know. People still think you need 20% down to buy a house. Like, you would find families out there that they think that it's 20% down. Can you imagine how many potential homeowners can be there if that myth is busted out? I mean, it's up to us to educate back to the community. So the more local seminars and workshops, the more they get educated, and then they can pass on the word to their relatives and friends. And that's how we expand that possibility of them getting conventional loans.
I want to say something. So I think, you know, we definitely, as leaders in the community, we got to do a much better job on educating the community, especially, you know, the Latino community. And more than anything, I think, you know, us Latinos, we're big on, you know, opening our own little business, you know, going out and, you know, trying different ventures and everything. And so what happens with that is that there's a lot of times that, you know, they're miseducated when it comes to the taxes. You know, there's a lot of people that go with tax people and they tell them, hey, you don't want to pay any taxes. Well, we're going to make all these deductions. And by the time that they want to buy a house, they don't qualify because they only reported $15,000, $20,000, $25,000. So I guess, you know, it's us as leaders in the community and being in real estate and seeing everything that happens, also getting together with not just educating the clients, but also in the financial aspect, educating everybody else that goes through the process in a transaction. And it starts with the person that does their taxes. You know, if somebody wants to do their taxes and, you know, and they know they want to buy a house, I think the people, the tax preparers that are sitting down with them, they should have some sort of knowledge on what it takes to get those people qualified to purchase a house if they're planning to do it eventually in maybe 2 or 3 years. And so that is one of the things that I cover, you know, on the seminars that I do. Now I've been doing this first-time homebuyer seminars for 5 years. I'm going on the 6th year. And, you know, and I tell you one thing, there's families that come sometimes, you know, maybe 2 or 3 times. And there's families that take up to, I just closed a transaction on a family that actually came to one of my first seminars. And it's been years. And, you know, but I'm actually really happy because these people went from being W-2 to becoming, you know, business owners and doing their taxes correctly to be able to qualify on the conventional side and be able to purchase a property with a very good amount of down payment and having an excellent rate. And I tell you one thing, I'm glad to say I became part of that. But the question is, how many of us are doing the same exact thing and educating our community so they can go out and do the same exact thing? And not only that, but I tell you one thing, when our people learn something, they go and they teach others. And so it got to start with it has to start with somebody saying, hey, I'm tired of this. I want to do something about it.
Very neat.
I'll piggyback on what you said. I think everybody on this panel, right, is tenured. And I think one of the things that we all share in common, right, is that we embrace education to our clients, right? And we're not just chasing the immediate gratification of just the sale, right? We're educating our people, because many of my clients too, right, they have mattress money, right? Or they're self-employed, and like you guys said, they don't deposit their money, or they won't buy anything because the mentality, right, is if I can't afford to buy it, I'm just not going to buy it until I can pay cash. So they don't develop any credit worthiness, right? So again, like what you said, Eloy and Vinny and Edwin, it's all about the education that we promote, starting with us, right? And to get them to be able to, even if it takes a year, 2 years, or even 5 years, right? Like you said, 5 years of doing seminars until they actually eventually make it a part of their life. So I think that's very important.
Very, very good. So another question. So you're all bilingual. So besides being bilingual, what other benefits, programs, and tools do you use to assure that your Hispanic buyers are successful in buying?
I'll start. Like for me, we have a very big legal background here in my office. We have a couple of attorneys that work with us, and we do a lot of estate planning and living trusts. And we try to really educate our clients on financial security, right? As either setting them up with a financial planner or making sure that we set up a living trust for them, because a friend of mine recently passed away without a trust, passed away without life insurance. And these are all things that as homeowners, right? If I'm the provider, right, and I pass away, what have I done to my family by not taking the proper precautions or taking the proper steps to be able to make sure my family is protected if something, God forbid, ever happened to me, right? So I think, again, it all goes down to just starting from credit to the planning of their wealth, right? To be able to make sure that they financially secure their position for their future and for their family's future, right? So that's something that we really embrace here at our office for our clients.
Anyone else? All right. Yes. And so that's good stuff. And that's true. It's not just about home buyers. It's about those buyers are someday going to turn into sellers, right? And so educated with how that works and all that. So one other thing, and I would say Hispanics as well as other cultures, but you're seeing multi-generation, people moving in together, multi-generations. But do you think that Hispanic millennials are relying on their parents and grandparents to be homeowners by purchasing a home together? Or do you find that Hispanic buyers are buying on their own and going out? And I guess same thing with Generation Z coming up in 10 years. Do you think that they'll be purchasing alone or doing it with other family? Any thoughts on that?
I think we're starting to see, I'll speak for what I'm seeing is, I think we're starting to see a lot younger generation buying on their own. You see young kids, 26, 25, already buying properties, and they're doing it on their own, and you would think that their parents are helping them with maybe the down payment, but you see most of them, they have good jobs. They're making good money. They're starting to make more money. They're starting to have better positions. So they're in a position themselves. You see single dads, single moms buying houses. Why? Because they're making it possible. And so it's nice to see that they're coming around, because back 10 years ago, 15 years ago, you would see, multiple family members buying a property because it couldn't qualify alone, which tells us and shows us that they're starting to make more money. The income is getting better. So that's a good thing. That's definitely a plus.
For sure.
Yeah, I definitely want to, piggyback on what Benny's saying. I think, one of the things that I'm starting to see is that definitely the kids of the first generations, of Latinos, I think now they're seeing the importance on having an education and, learning about more on, if I want to have my own business, what is it that I have to do to get educated on that aspect of becoming a business owner, being an entrepreneur and, getting the right knowledge and everything. And I guess one of the things that we're starting to see now is that the education that they're being provided and the knowledge that they're acquiring now, it's giving them the opportunity to be able to qualify, like Benny's saying, in many cases, one person can qualify on their own, maybe use one cosigner. But like back in the days, when you were working with like first time generation Hispanics, you needed to get 4 or 5 cosigners to be able to qualify for one house. And, and I think that's part of the difference that you see now with, with the millennial population.
Absolutely.
I think I'm seeing that more with Generation Z. I think I'm not, again, that's just me, but I think I see that more with Generation Z buying, purchasing homes right now and really getting involved with entrepreneurship or really trying to develop a brand for themselves, right? I have many clients that are in the YouTube business or in the media business, and they're young and they're killing it right now. They're making a lot of money. I don't really see that so much with millennials. I mean, that's my opinion.
And yeah, I mean, the big thing is the original immigrants to this country were, as we said, housekeepers, more manual labor, and now their kids are, getting a college education. And I
Right.
just spoke with one yesterday, registered nurse, making $160,000 a year, right? So you're going to be able to buy that house for sure.
It all boils down to education. I mean, it boils down to the goal in mind, why our parents or why we came to this country is taking advantage of what's available. And that's education, starts from there. I mean, these salaries are increasing. We got 28-year-olds making over 100,000. I'm like, wow, okay, all right, good for you. And I'm like proud. I'm like, wow, this is great. I mean, that's the new generation that's coming right behind us. The Zoomers are coming in. They're gonna be more independent. They're more based on, social, aspect of things, YouTube, like I mentioned. So they're gonna have different avenues of making money. So things are changing, but the Zoomers, watch out for them. I'm letting you know right now, those kids are something else. All right. So when you got millennials who are crazy, the Zoomers will change the game.
Yeah, for sure. I'm going to move on to another aspect, which we kind of touched on in the beginning when you guys were each giving your backgrounds. But as a Hispanic male, what have you learned from your family, and what are you teaching your kids about building family wealth?
You know what I learned from my dad is to not be afraid to go after things that you've always wanted. Here, my dad was in the restaurant industry as a waiter, and he was able to, in 1981, buy his first duplex for $26,000. And he was scared, but you know what? It made sense. And he said, when the numbers make sense, you don't have to think about it so much. And from then on, he bought other property. And so I think what I'm teaching my kids is to not be scared, to go after it. And to, more importantly, like the guys were saying, is we're starting to see the youth that are open to being entrepreneurs and not being the clock punchers. And so when you have the courage to do that, you are unstoppable, because now you can create whatever you want for yourself in life, and you see the possibilities. I mean, we're in the generations, what do they call it? The gig generation, where everyone has a side hustle, a gig, where they're making money. And you've never seen that before. I mean, you have Uber drivers, you have people who do other stuff. And now they have 2, 3 incomes, whereas before we would just rely on one. We were taught to punch a clock. Well, here, these people here, including yourself, Mike, I mean, we took the risk of becoming entrepreneurs. We are our own bosses. And when you can do that, like, the fear goes away of not being able to do things. And that gives you a new level of thinking. And that's the one thing that I teach my kids, is don't be afraid. My oldest, who just graduated from college, told me, Dad, do you mind if I stay at home till I'm 26, because I want to buy my first property before I move out? And I said, yeah, I mean, I'm not kicking you out, but you are more than welcome to. And that's good that he thinks that way, because that's what we want them to think. Buy properties. You don't have to be 30, 40, 50 for that to happen. And they see it as a possibility.
I definitely have to agree, Benny. I mean, watching our parents work hard, we were subconsciously being programmed, us ourselves as kids. I remember as a kid, I used to get woken up by my dad at 4:30 in the morning, brushing his teeth every day. He was a drinker too, so no matter what, by the way, he would wake up and still go to work at 4:35 in the morning. And I would like hear that, I woke up, went back to sleep. So I went to school later on, but I would subconsciously be programmed on how hard they were working, both my mom and my dad. And I think now it reflects, right? It reflects seeing that, and I think for us to know that, now we have to pass the baton on to our kids, like you mentioned, Benny, is very important. Now we have even more knowledge, way more tools to have versus what our parents did. So what we need to do is pass the baton, but know that generational wealth is very important, because a lot of us minorities, a lot of us just started owning real estate. A lot of people in this country started back in 1900s. So I had to always tell people, some people are not better than you. They're just ahead of you. That's the difference. They're in the coast, they're in Malibu and Newport Beach because they got transferred wealth over time and decades of family. We're just catching up. Some of us might skip generations to get there faster because of how hard we work, right? So I always tell people, don't worry, time will come. Just make sure that the end, think of the end, think of what you did in your life, and you know, you're your deathbed and they ask you that question, are you happy with your life? And if the answer is yes, then you did the most you could. And then at that point, it matters what your kids do after that, right? Warren Buffett said, don't give your kids too much that they do nothing, right? Or I mean, give them enough to do something, but not too much to do nothing, right? And there's that sweet spot, right? There's people out there that give their kids a Porsche in high school. And so how are they going to value money, right? They're not going to value money. And so that hustle that we had, they may lose it because we messed up their mentality. So we got to be able to make sure that they have to understand that, hey, you know what? Yeah, we did what we did for our generation, for our family, but you got to work as hard and continue on the legacy from here on out, because you want to be remembered great. You're going to be the great grandfather saying, yeah, I remember Eloy. I mean, you talk about grandpa Eloy. I remember back in the 2000s, this is the year 2100, you know, later on, they'll remember you, they'll remember Julio. That's how you establish legacy, get remembered on family trees. And that's how you make it happen, by doing that. So that's huge.
I mean, for me, you know, grew up single mom, always had an amazing work ethic. Like I said, from the beginning of just setting the example for me as to what it meant to work hard, right? To achieve the American dream, right? But like, none of us here were born with silver spoons. We've all made a name for ourselves independently through working hard and being able to provide for our family, right? I've been working since the age of 15, where I actually had to contribute to be able to live and pay rent, right? And help my mother and put food on the table, right? But one of the things that I embrace with my children, I've never really let them work in terms of, aside from helping the family business, which is my business, right? Primarily because I encourage education with my kids. My son's getting ready to finish college and start law school next year. So I take a lot of pride in guiding him that direction, because I think a lot of kids, even people that he went to high school with, right, they're always chasing the dollar. They want the cars right now. They want the money right now. And, you know, unlike myself, I didn't have the ability to just be able to go to school, you know, earn my degree and then get a job, right, and have a graduate degree. I know, Vinny, you're very big on education as well, have the ability to provide that to our kids. And that's something that I really, really take pride in. And even though my son doesn't always agree, because he's wanted the cars, he's wanted the shiny objects, right? And I have to pull back on the choke chain every once in a while to be able to say, look, that's going to come later, right? Because we had to work our asses off to be able to have what we have now, right? But I'll be damned if my kid screws that up. You know what I mean? Because it's important to me, right, that our kids have to do a lot better than what we did, right? And we're the legacy, like Edwin said, we're the legacy, and we're going to be that person. But our kids, they have to do 10 times better than what we did. So.
And I think it's very important what we teach our kids and what they see that we do, and the example that we are for them. You know, I remember when I was little, watching my mom. You know, she used to sell door to door. And I remember that she would sell through the week, and then every Sunday she would go and collect, payments from her clients. And, sometimes I would go with her, and, I every time up until now, I appreciate all the work that I've seen my mom doing and what she did for us. Cause, technically my dad left my mom when I was 4, and it wasn't like he was really providing for us. It was more than anything, my mom, hustling and, working hard and, being able to supply for 5 of us. It wasn't just like maybe 1 or 2 kids. It was actually 5 of us. So she really worked herself and, worked extremely hard. But one of the things that I've also learned from my mom was that, she was a saver. She saved a lot of money, and every time that she would make money, she would save it. So she never really learned to invest her money. So when I started in real estate and I started learning more about, finances and investing and everything else, I've learned that, she could have done much better if she could have developed a number one, a system. She could have probably even had people work for her, and she never made that jump. And then the other thing is, like, with her money, she always saved her money, and she never allowed her money to grow. So those were some of the things that I learned when I became an adult that now I want to transfer to my kids. Not only that, but I want my kids to learn to become business owners and whatever they like to do. One of the things that I always talk to them, if you want to become a doctor, go and, get an education, become a doctor, learn from other doctors. And when you're ready, make the jump to open up your own hospital or get your own practice or do something like that. If you want to be a teacher, do the same thing, but I want you to open a school now, not just, remain as a teacher. And so I guess, it's part of our job is to move within progress on the things that we learned that helped us evolve. And like Edwin was saying, the time is just, it's your own time. It doesn't matter, what other people are doing. You're able to create and generate on your own. And, it's just, the time doesn't really exist unless you are focused on somebody else's time. Focus on, we got to focus on our own time.
What I find interesting is there's a common thread here, right? Education, hard work, and it's very neat to hear. So it's inspiring, truly. It goes, beyond Hispanic culture. What you guys are saying here is why your families came to this country, right? So, and it is a fine line. I think it was Vinny that said, right, you give your kid so much freedom, but I think it was Edwin, sorry, that it's a fine line, right? So yeah, this country gives you the freedom to do what you want. And maybe for some of us that have things now, but we're teaching our kids, but it's a fine line, right? It's a fine line, but you guys have done a great job. And I really appreciate this today. I want to say, is there any final thoughts? But I have one more question. Is there anything else that anyone would like to add? No. Okay, so here's one last question. So you all are part of NARREP. A quick pitch about NARREP and what it represents for you guys and why you got involved in that. I thought it'd be nice to bring that up. So anybody would like to answer that?
I'll start. For me, NARREP, I've been, I started off as a board of director. I became president. I'm now past president. I'm currently now sitting on the board of governors, and I'll be coming back into 2022 into the MESLA chapter as a parliamentarian. But for me, the whole purpose of NARREP is obviously to be able to provide education, right, to all of our clients, right, and really show them the sustainability of wealth and how to be able to hold on to real estate and education, right, to our real estate clients. But it gives us a platform, right, as individuals on a bigger scale to be able to promote our knowledge to be able to do it on a broader level. So that's one of the biggest avenues for me as to what the benefit of NARREP means for me, is to just create that platform for me. And I've loved it. It's been amazing.
Nice, very nice.
For myself, NARREP, kind of what Julio was talking about is, NARREP is more about educating the professionals, right? Us. And then we go in turn and now start to educate our community, right? Versus NARREP directly educating the community. And that's a lot of people's different, view of it. They have a misunderstanding of how this all works. It's mainly about, again, education to us. But to add to that, it has evolved. NARREP has evolved into what they call now latitude. And with latitude, it starts to talk about more than just real estate, right? We're in this real estate bubble in the industry, and we could be the top best producer in our bubble, right? But there's the tech industry, there's the film industry, there's the food industry, media industry. I mean, there's so many other opportunities that a lot of us are not taking advantage of. And so what we're trying to do is break that mold and say, boom, hey, what if you are super successful in real estate? Maybe you can get into this now. And now you open up your mind to start getting into those opportunities. But also to shine the light on the successful Latinos out there in the country. Because we all know that media, they love drama, right? In order to make money, they have to put the light on the drama, on the problems, right? All the negative connotations that Hispanics have, right? Illegal immigration, and they're rapists or criminals and whatever, and that sells, I get it, right? But Latitude, they're trying to do is like, okay, let's get that flashlight over to these successful entrepreneurs. Let's talk about them. Let's talk about what we're doing here. Look at these guys. They're starting companies, multimillionaire, billionaires. I mean, that's what that Latitude's about. That's what they're trying to do, is focus more on that part. It may not sell the ratings and all that through CNN and Fox and all the other media outlets, but we're going to do our best to continue to shine. And I think that's the other thing about Latitude and what NAREP is. So that's my interpretation of it.
Appreciate it. Thank you.
I agree 100% with what they're saying. And I think the reason I joined was because I noticed that there's change that's needed in certain areas in our industry that I guess I wanted to be the one to say, hey, you know what, if change is needed, then I want to step up and say, how do we do it? And how do we make it happen? And an example of that is about maybe 5 months ago, I thought, you know what, the 90-day flip rule is affecting and it's limiting the FHA buyers. It's not allowing them to buy a nice refurbished property that everyone else has access to. You're actually holding them down from being able to buy a property. So I said, who do I call? I immediately called Gary. Gary said, make this call this person right now. Let's get this thing going. We need to speak to HUD and we need to speak to FHA. Well, we already dropped it in their ear and they're looking at possibly removing the 90-day flip rule because it's discriminating against FHA buyers. Instead of protecting them, it's discriminating. So it's being able to be in a position where you can make a call and be on the phone with a congressman within 2 or 3 phone calls. And so that's the access that NAREP has allowed us. And I think it's important because when you want change, you got to make it happen. You can't just hand it off and hope someone happens or give someone else the idea. I think we as leaders have to step up and make the change now.
Good job, Benny.
Yeah.
Thank you.
I think, for me, I didn't quite, know anything about NAREP until I became part of it. And I, becoming, before becoming a president, I was part of the chapters for about 5 years. And then later on, I became a president for the South Bay chapter. But I think I can define everything into why part of, why being part of NAREP, I think, is more than anything because you want to be a voice. And I think NAREP, and Latitude gives that opportunity to now, we're centralized. All Latinos are centralized in one place. And, and I want to thank Gary Acosta for, making that, for creating that platform for us to be able to become that voice. And like Benny was saying, it's not just about one thing. And, also Edwin was saying, it's not just about one thing. There's many sectors that now are coming together. And guess what? We're waking up everybody, and we want to let everyone know that we exist. We're Latinos. We exist here. We make decisions too. The money that we create and the money that we generate also counts. And guess what? We're also part of this economy. And so I guess being that voice, it's the reason why, I became part of this because, there's, and even if you look at it now, there's movie industries now, they're starting to add more Latinos into participating as part of it. Like you start watching TV, there's more Latinos now that are participating in it. Like before, they would record, movies and South Central and LA, and they would remove all the Latinos, and all you see, it was just like a different community. But now we're becoming in existence, and I think it's part of it because we all want to be voiced to exist, and that's what NAREP is all about.
And Elo, to add to that, not only that, they're trying to change the role in Hollywood. We're no longer being the token housemaid, like in the movies, or the parking attendant, or the cook in the back. We want to have different roles, right? And because it's huge, media is very important for the stereotype and perception that we have. So great stuff.
And it's an evolution, right? So from your parents that came here till now, things have evolved financially for many Hispanics, and also culturally, how they're viewed, right? So that's really neat. And as well, from what you said, what we're able to do here today, and again, thank you for being here, is we're able to give awareness to the Hispanic culture and everything about it. So thank you so much for being here today. And on a lighter note, we were going to be doing this in person at first, and now we're here on Zoom. And Kayla gave us these great backgrounds. I feel like I'm on CNN International. And if we were on CNN, I've decided Eloy and Venny's backgrounds are most representative if we were on CNN. You know, being in a suit in El Salvador, I don't know, you know, with that background, I don't know Edwin, but anyways, well, thank you guys so much for joining us today and for sharing. It's truly inspiring, and I really, really appreciate it.
Thank you, Michael.
Thank you, Michael. Thanks to the board. We appreciate it.